Okay, so hello everyone. So we continue our videos related to big data world, and today we'll focus on Hortonworks virtual machine. So as a reminder, the previous video was related to Cloudera VM. So if you haven't seen it yet, that's just the right time to do that. But we continue. Okay, so to get a Hortonworks VM, we go to hortonworks.com, and in product section we should use software download sandbox. And here you can see we have a number of options depending on which virtualization platform you use. Either it's VirtualBox, VMware, or just Docker. You are welcome to download the corresponding image. So I am using VirtualBox, so I should select this one. So the latest version is 3.01. If for some reasons you need an older version, just welcome to Sandbox Archive, which you can select also some legacy versions. So as you see, there are also Hortonworks Data Flow and Hortonworks Data Platform. In upcoming videos we will also cover these options as well, but for now just download the usual sandbox, 3.01. I have previously downloaded it, and as you can see, the size of it is about 20 gigs. As a reminder, for Cloudera, that was about 5 gigs. So as we would be able to see a bit later, many tools are included in this distribution which are not in Cloudera. So here, in comparison with Cloudera, we also have only one file. So if we just import it, so you can see a couple of differences if we compare with Cloudera. So the first one, by default, we have 4 CPUs. For Cloudera that was just one, but if possible, once again, I would recommend to give as many CPUs as it's possible for you, and default value for RAM is 10 gigs. Because there are much more services running on Hortonworks, so it requires much more memory than Cloudera. So for Cloudera, the minimum was 4 gigs. Here we have 10. So you can also change the folder where your VM will be stored. Other than that, you can keep it as it is and press import. So depending on how fast your hardware is, so that will be imported. Once it is done, we can start it. So as you can see, I have dedicated about 18 gigs of memory and not 4 but 6 cores. Let's get started. Okay, so I have already started it several times, so for me it will be loaded much faster, but for you, when you start it for the first time, it will take, well, a couple of minutes or tens of minutes depending on how fast your hardware is, but after that it will be loaded quite fast. Okay, so we are waiting. So for the okay, so once you see this, it means that loading has been completed. Okay, so we can, as a reminder, for Cloudera we had everything in one image, so we could actually work with virtual machine directly. So there was a graphical interface and so on, but here we don't have it. So we would need to use a manager called Ambari to monitor and manage our cluster, and for any other manipulation we will need to SSH to this virtual machine. So let's do that. Start session. Okay, so when you SSH to your VM for the first time, your username is root and default password is Hadoop, yeah, with small letters. When you first log in, you will be asked to change your password to something else. Okay, and yeah, so from here we can do some manipulations, and also, as it was mentioned, there is a graphical interface for cluster management and monitoring called Ambari, and it is accessible via this link, localhost and port 8080. And so the username to be used is this one, raj_ops, and the same password. Loading. Okay. So if we compare what we see to Cloudera Manager, so the interface is quite similar, right? So here on the left we have all services mentioned which are installed. So as you see, they are red. So because our VM needs time in order to start all these services. So once you have loaded your VM, it's okay. Then these services are red for some period of time, so that's fine. Okay, and you see that now Ambari is trying to start all these services. So we have one host. Okay, and you see that so we have some installations to be done. That's fine, and after that we will start services. Okay, so that's fine. Let's wait for a couple of moments. What we can see, so service status, any problems. So for example, if we click on HDFS, as you remember, it's one of the core components of Hadoop. So you can see a short overview. So name node and backup name node are stopped, and here we can see the problems. Description of the problems. So what is not working? Here we can see a categorization, so it's critical, and what was the time when it appeared for the first time, so about a minute ago. So that's just because we have just started our VM. Okay, so that's fine. Also, what can we see here? Hosts. Let's see our host. So as for Cloudera, we have only one host because it's VM. So in real cluster, we'll have multiple hosts listed here. So we see IP address, cores, and RAM. So unfortunately, right here we can't see how much memory is used, for example. So alerts. So here we can see all alerts related to our cluster. Okay, that's fine. Status, what was it about, which service, how much time ago, and state whether it's enabled or not. Okay, some cluster admin related things. Okay, so we have here listed all versions of all services installed. So for example, if a particular service is not installed, like here, so we'll have an option to add this service, right? Okay, sorry. So here we can also see whether some other versions of distribution is available. If yes, we can install them. Service accounts. Okay, so because for each service it's quite usual practice that we have a dedicated account for each service, which is used for, so for example, to run Hive service, we use a special Hive user with name Hive. So that's quite common. So Kerberos, so that's some kind of authentication which could be used to be able to access a particular service. So we'll have a dedicated video a bit later when we'll talk about Kerberos. So what you should remember that by default this service is disabled, so we don't need to enable it right now. And service auto start. Okay. So this should be enabled. So that means when we restart our virtual machine or start it for the first time, all services will be started by default. In the meantime, you can see that some services are coming to life. So that means, okay, let's track the progress. Let's track the progress. Okay, so you see all needed clients have been installed. So, and after that we are starting services one by one. Okay, Zookeeper. So as a reminder, that was a service which coordinates all services. So how one service, usually one service is accessible by another one through Zookeeper. So Solar is used for search. Ranger, that's policy manager, which is responsible for controlling whether a particular service or user is able to do something or not. For example, access some folder or another service. Okay. So so some services are coming into life. Okay, that's fine. Dashboard. So as most of the services are not yet launched, here we would see not applicable, right? So for example, if we don't have a name node or still running, okay, so it's been started but not yet, it's being started but not started yet. So because of that, any statistics related, for example, to a name node is not available. So once it's started, it should appear here. The same applies to HBase, for example, and so on. Okay, let's track what we have here. Okay, start. Okay, so data node, HBase, Kafka, and so on. Okay, that's fine. And also you can see somewhere this health package. So that means that this particular service is in a maintenance mode. And what a maintenance mode actually means. So that means that for this particular service, we don't want to receive any messages like info messages, warnings, errors, and so on. So this mode is particularly useful when we do some configuration or, for example, service restart, and we don't want to see all these errors popping up. Then we just move this particular service to maintenance mode. So if we open a service, so here we have some information related to this service. So it, of course, it varies depending on the service. And here we have actions. So basically from here we can do some manipulations with a particular service. So of course we can start it, stop, move to maintenance mode, move it out, and so on. Okay, so for example HDFS. Okay. Of course, as you can see, depending on service, we have more or less services or actions to be available, right? Okay, so HDFS is still offline because this name node is still not started. That's fine, but as you can see, some statistics is already available. Let's move back to dashboard. Yeah, okay, so as you see, once some HDFS related services are up, we can also see some corresponding statistics related to that. So for example, heap size, disk usage, and so on. So once some other services are up, you'll see them here as well. Yeah. Okay. So once everything is up and running, we should see them as a green ones, like it's here. Yeah. Okay, let's still see. Okay, as you can see, yeah, and one also comment. So we will see these warnings hanging here until they are still applicable. Yeah, so once this error has gone, now for example service was down, but then it's up, so this error is not applicable anymore, so this error will go out of here. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so connection is still not established, but let's wait for it. Okay, and here, so that's just a summary of all these events. Yeah, so here we can see that still 15 events or errors are still applicable to our cluster. 15, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, right? Okay, so that's a summary. So if you don't want to count how many errors we have right now in our cluster, you just can look at here. Yeah, so 15 still applicable. That's fine. Okay, at 70%, and you see, so it takes already about 11 minutes. So the recommendation which was given to Cloudera VM is also applicable here as well. So once all services are up and down, and you are done with your VM, it is recommended not to shut down it by sending a shutdown signal or just powering it off, but just save the machine state. So the next time we want to work with it, we will not need to wait until all services are up and running. So as you see, so all services, for example for HDFS, are up and running. That's why we don't have here any red events. And also the total amount of errors has been reduced, right? Okay. And in dashboard we can see some statistics. That's fine. Okay. Still 13 errors to be corrected. Okay. Okay, so it will take a while. Let's see what we have here. So alerts. So here we can see all alerts. So and you can see that some are red ones, for example critical, and some are gray ones. So if it is a gray one, it means that this particular service is in maintenance mode, and you can also see an icon here indicating that, right? Okay. And also here we can see that auto start is enabled, and also we can see that which components belong to each service. So for example, if we take HDFS, you can see that actually multiple components belong to this service. So for example, for HDFS we have 5 services applicable, right? Okay, so 10, almost done. Okay, so cluster admin, that's fine. Host. Okay, so about this memory. So as you can see, okay, so its statistics is not available yet related to memory. Let's wait a bit. Let's go back to dashboard. Okay. Okay, so just a reminder, let's go through the services we can see here. So HDFS is a core component, one of core components of Hadoop, and it is a Hadoop distributed file system, so basically a distributed system on top of local file systems. So most probably the next video will be related to it. So Yarn, yet another resource negotiator. So that's a service which is responsible for giving cluster resources to a particular service or program running in the cluster. MapReduce2 is a service which allows us to execute our programs. So it's one of engines. So another engine, for example, is Tez, and which about we'll talk a bit later. Hive, so that's a database commonly used in Hadoop. HBase, that's also a database, NoSQL database. Uzi, that's a scheduler. So if you want to schedule our job or program based on some conditions, for example, if you want to start our program at a particular time moment, or based on some other conditions, like some file is available somewhere and we should trigger a job. So Zookeeper, that's a coordinator like we talked. So InfraSolar, that's a search engine. Kafka, that's a streaming management messaging system. Ranger, that's a policy manager. And Spark, that's also a very crucial component of a big data ecosystem. That's also a processing engine like MapReduce or Tez, but it's more universal, and a lot of videos will be dedicated specifically for Spark. So we are using Spark 2 version because some time ago that was quite common to use Spark 1.6, for example. Now all new distributions use Spark 2 version, Spark 2 1 point something, Spark 2 3 point something, and so on. Okay, let's see what we have in our services. Okay, so we still have some services to be started. Spark, Data Analytics, Studio. Basically 2 things to be started. That's fine. Let's still wait for it. Okay, Uzi is also running. Okay, but we have still 2 errors. So connection refused. Okay, so that means that last time when Ambari tried to connect to this particular service to see if it's up or not, then we got this connection refused or connection timeout. But as you see, just less than a minute ago it became green, means service is up, so connection was successful. So still we have two things, 2 errors. So Uzi, okay, so it's also up. So we have the last one, Spark. Okay, it's also started, but history service, connection failed. Okay, so that's fine. Let's wait for it to be green as well, and then probably we'll conclude our video. Okay, so start all services, that's fine. Okay, everything completed, status green. Okay, so and as you see, check interval is 1 minute. Of course, it can be changed as well, but well, you know, it's a bit tricky. One thing is to consider when we choose this check interval. So for example, if we choose to check a particular service for each 10 seconds, for example, it will require more resources from our cluster to do that, right? So in 1 minute we check, if this check interval is 10 seconds, we check it 6 times, and if the interval is 1 minute, only once. So of course when we check 6 times, it requires more resources. Okay, but for now, as you see, everything what was needed for us is up and running. So we consider that everything is fine. Okay, so and at that point of time we conclude our lecture on Hortonworks VM. Thanks to all for watching. So keep an eye on our YouTube channel, on our blog, available at blog.dataguru.guide. Okay, and yeah, see you later. Bye bye.